There is a part of your life that you don't control, a part that acts, decides, explodes, retreats, sabotages itself, all without you really understanding why. Carl Jung called this a complex, a charged emotional core that lives within us and, when ignored, drives our actions on autopilot. And that's not weakness. It's simply what happens when you leave parts of yourself unnamed, unheard, unseen. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Men are often taught to swallow everything: anger, sadness, fear, to pay bills, support people, and move on. But inside, something breaks, something rebels, and that silent rebellion can turn into an explosion, or it can turn into exhaustion. An exhaustion you can't explain, but that weighs on you every day. And worse, you start to believe that this weight is you, but it's not. Complexes are poorly healed wounds. They are not diseases. They are living parts of your history that are still waiting to be seen. Jung said that behind every complex there is an archetype, an ancestral image that inhabits the collective unconscious. They are like inherited behavior patterns, invisible structures that shape how we react, desire, and fear. Suffering is the path to consciousness, said Nietzsche, but it only transforms when viewed with courage. The shadow, for example, is one of these archetypes. It represents everything you have rejected in yourself in order to be accepted by the world. The problem is that it does not disappear. It stays in the dark, waiting for the moment to take the wheel. And when it does, you become someone you don't even recognize. You lose control, regret, blame yourself, and repeat. The cycle continues, and you call it a genius problem, the way you are, or bad luck. But deep down, you know there is something deeper behind it. Ignoring this is dangerous. The shadow you pretend doesn't exist becomes exactly what destroys your relationships, your self-esteem, your projects. Jung said that the unconscious shows you the face you show it. If you deny something within yourself, it becomes your enemy. But if you have the courage to listen, you may find a transformative force there. As Kierkegaard said, the door to change opens from the inside, and you already know what's inside. The question is, how long will you keep running away from it? Most men don't realize how much their attitudes are shaped by internal forces they don't understand. You think you're in control, but sometimes the decisions are being made by an old version of yourself, created to survive. This also applies to how you deal with women. When you don't understand the female archetypes that surround you, you repeat the same mistakes. You are attracted to patterns that hurt you. You project fantasies onto real people, or you expect something from them that they never promised to be. Jean Shinoda Bolen, a Jungian psychiatrist, studied female archetypes based on the goddesses of ancient Greece, not as religious symbols, but as psychological mirrors. When a man understands these patterns, he stops frustrating himself by trying to fit all women into the same mold. More than that, he also begins to understand the feminine forces within himself. Yes, within. Every man has inner aspects that have been repressed for fear of appearing weak, but which, if ignored, become monsters. Let's start with Artemis, the goddess of the hunt. She represents the free, focused, and independent woman, the type who doesn't need anyone else to feel complete. And that, for many men, is threatening. You try to get close, but she always seems distant, present for a while, then gone. You feel rejected, small, confused. But maybe the problem isn't her. Maybe it's your expectation that every woman will fill a hole that you yourself refuse to look at. Artemis isn't looking for romance. She's looking for purpose. And many men get hurt trying to turn her into something she doesn't want to be. The same archetype may exist within you. part that wants to isolate itself from the world and focus on a mission, but also feels anger when it has to deal with intimacy. Jung said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to a deeper understanding of ourselves. If you keep attracting the same type of emotionally unavailable woman, it may be because you are also running away from real connection. Or maybe you never learned how to deal with your own vulnerability. And that's why you get involved with women who don't expose theirs either." Artemis's shadow is fury, cold anger, contempt for weakness, and that anger comes out when control is threatened. As in the myth of the Caledonian bull, this destructive inner force must be confronted, not with denial, but with courage. "No wind blows in favor of those who don't know where they are going," wrote Seneca. And maybe it's time to stop chasing answers outside yourself and start facing the bull that lives inside. Not all silence is peace. Sometimes it is just fear disguised as serenity. Hestia, the goddess of the hearth, represents the archetype of the woman who seems invisible, but carries a depth that few can reach. She does not shout, demand, or dramatize, but she also doesn't fit into what the modern world expects. And maybe you, as a man, have already met a woman like this. Quiet, reserved, but with such a strong presence that she seemed to transform any place into a shelter. Hestia women live by their inner axis. Her peace does not come from the outside, but from a firm, silent center that does not sway easily. She's the kind of woman who won't impress you right away, but you realize you miss her when she's gone. She doesn't need approval or spectacle. The problem is that many men don't know how to deal with this kind of presence. Accustomed to emotional performance and the need for constant affirmation, they cannot understand the value of deep calm. Worse still, many confuse this calmness with disinterest. But what Hestia represents is something that modern men have lost: the ability to be fully present in the moment, to do something simple with total presence, to have roots. "Still waters run deep," said Lao Tzu. But how can you swim in them if you've spent your whole life just reacting to the waves on the surface? Within many men, there's a dormant Hestia, the part that asks for silence, clarity, order, that prefers to tidy up the inner house instead of seeking noise to distract itself. But when we ignore this part, we end up at the mercy of emotional chaos. We start seeking validation in external achievements, in empty applause, in relationships that only serve to fill the noise of our own minds. "He who looks outside dreams. He who looks inside awakens," wrote Jung. But looking inside requires courage, because deep down, you know there are things there that have been waiting for years to be seen. Men with the active Hestia archetype don't need to show off. But the price of this is that the world sometimes ignores them. And if you've ever felt out of place at social gatherings, as if you had nothing to prove, but still carried the feeling that something was wrong, maybe that's your Hestia side asking for a seat at the table, and she deserves it. As Marcus Aurelius taught, the happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts. And sometimes the best thoughts come when you learn to be at peace with your own silence. There are women who cannot stand the idea of being alone, not because of weakness, but because they feel that they only truly exist when they are in a relationship. Hera, Queen of Olympus, symbolizes exactly this archetype: the woman who lives to be a wife, whose identity revolves around commitment. For many men, being in a relationship with a woman like this is like entering into a deep and often suffocating emotional contract. Hera values honor, status, and fidelity. She wants stability, but above all, she wants to be recognized as someone's woman. When that's missing, the ground disappears. She can forgive betrayal, disrespect, even public humiliation, as long as she is still the chosen one. But behind this lies a void that has not been filled by love or respect, but by emotional dependence. Nietzsche said, "Hope is the worst of evils, for it prolongs the torment of man." And when a Hera woman waits for an idealized version of her partner, she suffers for a man who only exists in her head. Perhaps you have already been involved with someone like this, who seemed to love you, but in fact loved what you represented. A woman who needed the role more than the person. And when she felt threatened, she didn't attack you, but another woman. It's the dark side of Hera. Jealousy turned into anger, wounded pride overflowing into revenge. She projects the abandonment she fears in every little gesture and responds aggressively before even confirming whether there was actually any betrayal. Deep down, it's not malice, it's desperation. But this archetype also exists within many men. It is the man who believes that he will only be complete when he finds the one, who invests everything in a woman and then loses himself in her. When this pattern takes over, he accepts anything to maintain the bond, even if it costs him his freedom, his energy, his identity. As Epictetus taught, no man is free unless he is master of himself. The solution is not to run away from deep relationships, but to learn not to lose yourself in them, to know how to love without losing yourself. Because the archetype of Hera also has a bright side. It shows that commitment can be sacred when it comes from a conscious choice, not from neediness. Relationships only become fortresses when both partners enter them whole, and not expecting the other to complete them. And if you still feel like you need someone to save you, maybe what's missing isn't love, it's you. Every man carries within himself an unresolved relationship with care. The way he was nurtured or neglected shapes the way he loves, protects, and even fails. Demeter, the goddess of the harvest, represents the archetype of the mother in her most powerful form, the one who lives to nurture. Perhaps you were raised by a woman like this, who gave her all to feed others and forgot herself in the process. Or maybe you're stuck in this pattern, searching every relationship for someone to care for you as a mother should have. Demeter is abundance, but she is also silent pain. When her daughter Persephone is taken to the underworld by Hades, she paralyzes the world. Nothing grows, nothing blooms. It's the mourning of a mother who loses what she loves, not only to death, but to growth. And that is what many Demeter women face when their children grow up, their partners drift away, or when no one else needs them the way they once did. Everything that is born must be prepared to lose, said Heraclitus. But not everyone is ready to let go. Being in a relationship with a Demeter woman may seem like paradise at first. She cares, she nurtures, she makes you feel seen. But over time, that same dedication can become suffocating. She starts living for you. And when you want space, she gets hurt. She closes off. She resents you. She doesn't say it, but she makes you pay for it. She doesn't yell, but she manipulates with silence. Her love becomes a prison. And the same can happen inside you. Many men become compulsive caregivers. They support, protect, and solve everything. But deep down, they hope to be recognized, loved, and indispensable. When they are not, they break inside. Demeter, when hurt, collapses emotionally. The energy that once nourished her turns into emptiness. Her inner world dries up, and resentment becomes a form of punishment. If you live with anger at everything you've done for others and feel that no one sees your efforts, you may be living the archetype of the wounded Demeter. Perhaps you are waiting for recognition as a form of love, but be careful. This kind of demand can destroy what affection still exists. In mythology, the only thing that restored the earth was the return of Persephone. But but she never returned whole. Part of her remained in the underworld. This teaches us something profound. Sometimes, growing up means losing a part of yourself forever. And maturity comes when we accept this without becoming bitter. As Jung said, what we do not face in ourselves, we will encounter as fate. Maybe it's time to look at that part of you that still feels like you need to save everyone, including that wounded child who is still waiting to be saved by someone. Some men spend their entire lives waiting for something to change. They wait for a sign, an opportunity, a savior, but they remain stuck in the same place. Persephone, the daughter of Demeter, represents this archetype of eternal waiting. In the myth, she is kidnapped by Hades and taken to the underworld, where she remains for part of the year. And even after she is freed, she is never the same again. This is because every descent, whether through loss, grief, crisis, or abandonment, leaves its mark, but it also leaves wisdom. Persephone begins as a girl who has no choice, who is taken away. But little by little, she becomes queen of the underworld. The woman who was once a victim now knows both worlds, that of light and that of darkness. And many men live this journey. They are thrown into crises they did not ask for. They go through falls that tear them apart. And only then do they realize that something new was born there. He who has not gone through the hell of his own soul will never face his demons, wrote Carl Jung. And in the end, that is what transforms us. Not the escape, but the dive. The archetype of Persephone also lives in you when you put off choices, adapt too much to others, or fear growing up. When you wait for someone to save you, but don't take a step toward your own change. When you're still the boy waiting for approval, validation, or the perfect woman who will make everything worthwhile. But the truth is simple. No one is coming. You are the one who needs to choose to step out of the role of victim and take on the weight of your own freedom. As Sartre said, we are condemned to freedom. This is scary, but it is also liberating. Because from the moment you stop waiting and start acting, the whole world begins to respond differently. If you felt that this content spoke to you, like the video, and subscribe to the channel. YouTube's algorithm now only delivers this type of reflection to those who interact. And your like could be what makes this content reach someone who is going through exactly what you went through. Write the word awakening in the comments if any part of this video really touched you. And if you feel that this type of content needs to continue to exist, consider leaving a donation of any amount. Even if it's small, it's a way to keep this channel alive, and to say that it's worth continuing to produce content that, like Persephone's journey, illuminates those who have been in darkness. Because in the end, it's not theory that transforms, it's choice. And yours starts now.